I use 3 phases to work with trauma and to work with scar tissue. So the first phase is doing exercises to help people calm. But when the nervous system calms, sometimes the things that are sort of trapped in there, the worries can start to bubble up. So we need help sometimes in those cases. We need to find someone that can help us work through that. There's a lot we can do by ourselves, definitely. But if those things come up, we might need to go and find someone to help to process it. So processing would be the second stage where we go into the memories that are coming up or the thought processes, and we do some kind of activity to work through them to let that response leave the body. Some people just doing those first exercises, those regulating exercises, gets rid of that. It sort of works through the trauma, just magically works through itself. But some people need that little bit of an extra help. So if you notice that when you're doing these sort of calming exercises, that stuff is coming up, it doesn't mean that it's not working. It means that it is working, and you just need to move to the next stage to work through that. The other stage, the third stage, is the coaching and the integrating. So doing some of the mapping techniques or doing just regular meditations as well that can really help with integration.
Do you find that your approach, it works quite well with a particular type of psychological practice or something to go alongside it?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, the way that I work holistically with the body. So I'm guiding people through practices like what we just did. If we're doing hands on body work, we're doing hands on body work. If we're processing traumatic memories, we're just working with that traumatic memory. I don't do talk therapy. I'm not trained in talk therapy. And I think it's really useful for men who are working through these things to be able to have a talk therapist that they can go and debrief to. That narrative therapy of being able to express and talk through what's happening and get a psychological perspective is really, really useful. Especially men who are very masculine men and have been taught, they don't talk about their feelings. They can often be holding in a lot of these stories versus people who are comfortable to talk about them, and they're saying the story over and over and over again, and find that that repeating of the story can sometimes be quite traumatic. They're just sort of entrenching it. But for people who've kept that story in and they haven't spoken about that trauma, just getting out how they feel, it can be so healing and so life changing for people. And it's important. Talking is important. I wanted to get that out there about men because they are a lot of the time socialized to just stiff upper lip, keep it quiet, and don't mention it. Don't talk about your feelings. And talking about them is super, super important.
And I want men listening to know as well that if the idea of going to see a therapist feels a bit confronting, a bit too much, you can start with a support group, or even the word support group might sound a bit, oh, but there are groups such as the Men's Table. And I'll put some links below to some different kinds of areas that you can go to where, like Lorraine says, just actually being able just to say your story, be heard and listened to by other men who get it because they've been there too. I've heard with so many men saying that even just sometimes that one experience of that could be tremendously healing. So I'm so glad you've brought that up. I love this because there are so many topics that are all part of this picture that I think though aren't talked about a lot because we often will just focus on the physical because that seems to be, well, that's the problem rather
Yeah.
than, well, look, it's all interconnected, this bigger view.